Hey, what is up you guys, and welcome to Young Family Farms. Today we're going to be taking a real quick look at all things you need to know about having backyard chickens. And we're going to be talking everything from picking out baby chicks to the infrastructure and equipment you need, brooding them, up to adult birds, and try to give you those cheat codes so you don't make some of the same mistakes we did over our last 3 years of raising chickens. Also want to give you some great resources. There's links below for everything mentioned in the video, as well as free PDF download you can find there. So yeah, without further ado. All right, brooding setup. A lot of times people will use, well, if you have enough chicks, an entire room, but people use the water stock tanks, really anything that's going to contain your stuff. I built some screen lids because we do have a cat, so just wanted to make sure that actually bent all the way around and I could kind of squeeze it in to secure it. And then mounted some lights, got 2 lights. These are just plant grow lights. We're automatically on a 12-hour timer to give them 12 days of light so they have some normalcy at the right time of day, and just secure those to the top. All right, I started out with just 1, but by the time you add food and water in here, they don't have much room to run and play. There was 4 chicks in here, they did great, but I wanted them to have room to run and play, so ended up adding a second one and a little kind of catwalk in between so that they could run back and forth. Now I put about 2 to 3 inches of the triple screen shavings. You can find something similar probably at your local feed store. We have a place called Elson's. Just look for a feed store that does like kind of horse and livestock. But these are triple screen pine shavings. They're great. I do a big clump, I don't know, about that much. 2 to 3 inches of shavings. I like to build up a little pyramid. You'll see as the chicks are able to hop up there real easy. Maybe not the first few days, you want it down a little bit lower so that they can easily get access. But they kick around a bunch of stuff, and before you know it, your water dish looks like that. So the pyramid idea really helps people for the first few days as well. Some people just use paper towels instead of the chips and then upgrade. As long as you're keeping 3 inches or so, kind of more deep litter method, you're not having to swap it out constantly. You can get by for a couple weeks, depending on how many birds you have and the amount of space you have. So daily, you're gonna come along, give a good shake to get the crumbles back in. You'll see they eat the crumbles and just some dust is left. Twice a day, and then you're gonna be dumping out the water. So at least dumping it out like so. And if there's enough to refill, that might be okay. But checking that water level. This one does need totally sprayed out and refilled. Every couple days that'll happen. These brooding plate, this one's by a company called Coop. It's great. Essentially the underside of a mama bird. And obviously you would have 2 to 3 inches of wood shavings in here as well. These have a heated plate that's 105 degrees, which is the temperature of the underside of a mama hen. You can also get this little optional feathers so they feel like they're under a mama there. And they know to go underneath here and heat up. They'll lay down under there. You can adjust the legs. You want to keep it at a slant so they have a gradient. They can go all the way on the low side, or they can stand on the high side. And you're going to keep bringing this up as they grow. They tell you directions. And this is to keep them from standing on top and pooping. This one's dirty, diatomaceous earth dust on it. That's kind of the basics though for what we have used for a brooding setup. Any container will work. Key points here: keeping food and water, keeping them protected, keeping that screen over the top, giving them access to 105-degree heat. A couple things to watch out for. One of the first things is, well, pasty butt, checking their bottom, even through your adults. Those fluffy butt feathers, once poop starts to get stuck in there, you want to address it fairly quickly. It can turn bad for them. If it's not too bad, you can likely get away with just soaking it with a lukewarm washcloth, light, mild soap on it, maybe. I just do water. Let that soak for a little bit, you can clean it off. Sometimes you have to get the scissors in there and clean it up a little bit, especially on the adults. Not a bad idea to give them a butt cut in the spring to summer anyways, after they've molted and those new feathers have come in, kind of just keeping their back area cleaned up to avoid the pasty butt. Another thing is handling them too much and too long. First few days, want to be giving them electrolytes and probiotics. They may have become dehydrated on their travels to you, so get them those electrolytes right away. Don't handle them really at all the first few days. Let them have the heat, and then after that, don't handle them for more than a minute or 2 at a time. When they're really young, they need access to that 105-degree heat. That's the #1 way that people lose chicks, is by keeping them out from under the heat too much. Kids want to handle them too much. A couple minutes here, a couple times a day at most for the kids. They love them, they're great, they're so cute, but just be mindful of that. Quick segment as well on picking baby chicks. Now, most people get their baby chicks from a feed store, which is great. They all come from a couple big hatcheries out east. They're all vaccinated against your most common poultry chicken diseases, which is great. Getting them from there is wonderful. Usually just a few bucks, Tractor Farm Supply and such. The treatment of the birds is not as great as if you go with somebody more local, but it works. Also, your ability to get the birds that you want, the exact selection, can be pretty difficult. You're kind of at the mercy of what they have. Or if you go through some custom breeders, you can get your green and blue egg-laying Americanas and such and really choose the bird that works best for you, where it's going to be fairly standard chickens at like a Tractor Farm Supply. So just keep that in mind, but you're going to be spending $3-4 a bird. So are the blue eggs and such that worth it to you, or is 60 bucks for a chick that's hard to get a hold of worth it to you? So anyways, vaccinated is great. The two diseases that they are vaccinated from are pretty bad, and it doesn't hurt to have them vaccinated when they're babies at that point, 1 day old. Now with sexing, most breeds, the babies are born the exact same color. So I guess what that means is that they have to inspect the bird, the underside, the vent, and there's a 90% chance they get it right. So 1 in 10, you may get a male. Male, as it starts to grow to beyond a few weeks of age, would be called a cockerel instead of a pullet. That's the time when you would start to notice. We have a great example right here, just happened to us. So we got, looks like they're all inside. These chicks are, what are you girls, 8-9 weeks old or so. Barred rock, great, and you can already see right there the comb and wattles, which is the headgear. So same variety here, spotted Sussex. This is a male, and this is a female. See the difference in that headgear? And also those tail feathers, look how much longer. So handling them, you know, often every day is a great thing. Lightly, even once they're starting to get this age, so that they stay used to people, used to handling. Not even pecking at me, which is great. Other thing, you will see them start to crow as well. About the age of 8 weeks, they will attempt their best to crow. So we have a cockerel on our hands here. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to have roosters in this area, this town. We still kind of are in town here. So we're gonna have to figure out what to do with him. Knowing what to do with them is difficult because, hey buddy, because there's a lot of people in the same boat. And there's just not a lot of good options. Good ratio, if you are gonna keep a rooster, is about 10 hens per rooster. Otherwise they end up fighting quite a bit. There's the rooster versus the hen, or the cockerel versus the pullet side by side. You can see that difference. So anyways, a good ratio is about 10-to-1 hens versus rooster. So, but the chances of them being birthed is 50-50. So there's a lot of roosters that get eaten or otherwise disposed of, which is unfortunate for the poor roosters. It's a tough life. Okay, so brooding. This setup here, we were keeping that in the house the first couple weeks until they start to develop some feathers. You'll be amazed at how fast they do develop, but you really want to keep those temperatures very nice. There's great charts that can tell you what temperature is the minimum temperature based on the age of the chicken they can withstand. I'll link one of those charts below. That being said, this was in the house for the first 3 to 4 weeks. Once they get big enough that they're flying around there, they're starting to get some feathers. Although you could do it outside. I would probably put a small space heater inside your coop and also have your brooding plate in there as well, so they have that hot spot they can get to 105 degrees. Heat lamps are also an option. You can't get them anymore in California, I believe, because incandescent bulbs are now no longer allowed to be sold in California. The heat bulb, 250 watts, those things pull, where these pull like 25 watts. So 10 times the amount of electricity and a great amount of fire danger with it as well. That thing tips over, it'll light stuff on fire. So these are really a great option. A lot less energy, a lot less fire risk. The chicks love it. I've done it both ways. I'm really liking this option. If you are putting them in a coop, an additional space heater just so it's not getting that cold is a good option. Waiting a little later in the year is also a good option for getting your baby chicks, so you're not dealing with those low temperatures, especially if you want to start them outside, even in the garage or a shed for that matter. So what do you do if you do end up with a cockerel? It's sad, especially if the kids are attached to it, but there's not a lot of good options. You can look, you can try to post it online, see if somebody will take it. Somebody that only has hens, you might get lucky. Chances are he's gonna get eaten though, or your neighbors are gonna hate you because they're pretty loud. They do that crow to let everybody in the area know that hey, I'm over here, I'm a dude, and I have a pack of ladies, so stay away. It's a territorial thing, just kind of letting everybody know. They crow all day, all night, but they are great to have around. A lot of people say fertilized eggs are slightly nutritious. You don't have to worry about baby chicks being in there as long as you're collecting the eggs daily. So now, if your rooster has mounted your hens, the eggs still are just an egg, but if you allow the hen to lay on that pile of eggs, it's called brooding. And after a few days, it will start to develop a baby in there. It's kind of how the process works. So no, if you have a rooster, you're not getting baby chicks as long as you're keeping up on the eggs. But it gives you that ability. The other big perk of a rooster as well is their great protection. They have huge 3-4 inch talons on the back of their leg, and they will go after a predator. They'll sound the alarm, the chicks go right and hide and run under cover, under bushes and such, while the male goes out there and tries to fight. They're great to have around, good personality. They can help keep the flock in order to help establish that pecking order, but unfortunately, they just don't really work in town. And speaking of in town, check your zoning, figure out where you are and what the rules are in your area. At least know the rules. Whether you completely follow them or not is really up to you. I don't think your chances of getting reported are that great, but there are certain amounts of birds you can have in areas depending on the size of your lot, certain offsets that things are supposed to be from neighbors' fences. It's good to at least be aware. With the rooster though, in all reality, he's probably gonna get eaten a little later than this once they start crowing, so maybe 10 to 12 weeks or so. Most chicken you get in the store, they're only like 8 weeks old, but you know, they stuff them full, and they're special meat bird varieties, broilers, that grow and bulk up really fast. So it was Thelma and Louise, now it's Thelma and Louis. Louis, fortunately, we haven't quite decided what to do yet, but we're gonna have to come up to a decision fairly soon here. That is if you, the 90% chance is if you're buying sexed birds. If you're buying straight run birds, they're 50-50 chance. So you may see those for sale as well. So if you can't have roosters, just do your best to try to find straight run, and then again, 90% chance. Now, when I do switch one food type to another, I start to blend it first instead of just a straight hard switch. And I'll talk you through my hen mix that I have, but also it's great to feed them not only some mealworms, which are great as a little treat, but also some black soldier fly larvae. There are also ways of growing your own black soldier flies. Check that out. People grow them in those black storage containers. Kind of interesting. If you're really a do-it-yourselfer and you don't mind that sort of thing, go for it. I want to look into that this summer because I think it looks awesome. If I do, I'll post some videos about my experience. I do like this brand quite a bit. I'll link it below, but this is a chick starter. So high protein, the first 8 weeks of life. A 25-pound bag is going to give you just about the right amount for 4 to 6 chicks. You should be good. After that, a 25-pound bag of their grower, and I believe that's 8 to 20 weeks. You'll feed them the grower mix. And then after that, 20 weeks, they can start to go on a layer feed, which we'll talk about in a minute, which gets very high in calcium, less protein, because they need to develop eggshells every day. They need that calcium where they're no longer growing, so the protein would get them overweight fairly quick. I like this brand. It uses a grub protein, and it is soy and corn free. It's organic, non-GMO, etc. So it seems to be a really good brand. It is available on Amazon, so yeah, I'll link that. But here's where you start: 25-pound bag up to 8 weeks, then 25-pound bag of the grower crumbles for the next 10 weeks, and then you will move them over to layer pellets. You should start to get eggs probably around 4 to 6 months of age. You will start to get eggs out of your hens. The diatomaceous earth, it actually is a oyster shell. That is, so it's high in calcium, that's ground really fine. Little tiny shards of almost like glass coming out of the oyster shell, just as it's crushed super fine. So basically what that does is it gets inside of little insects, pests, etc., and it gets in their joints and just kind of cuts them up. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, essentially. So really does help with that. It adds some calcium. That is not great to get in your lungs or in your animal's lungs. So I let the animals out of there, I put on the mask. Anytime you're dealing with manure as well, also a good time to put on a mask. You never know. So that's why I use those, especially when I'm doing them both in conjunction. When you are getting chicks, getting 4 to 6 is a good minimum number, especially if 1 or 2 of those turn out to be male. You'll be happy you started a little bit higher. Having a couple extra eggs never hurt. You don't start to establish the pecking order until you have more than 4 though. So really they don't want less than that. Otherwise they're gonna be fairly lonely. The equipment. A pair of muck boots is great when you're spreading around beddings, wood shavings. It's not coming over the top. Diatomaceous earth. A pair of Crocs for your day-to-day, grabbing an egg. I try not to wear shoes that go in the chicken coop into the house, and a mask for when you are spreading rake and poop or diatomaceous earth. An N95, if it's well fit, would work as well. I find this works better for me, and I have it around anyways, so I go with the full-on respirator. All right, now we've gotten to be, what are these guys now? 10 weeks or so, just over 2 months. We are a pullet and a cockerel, fairly feathered out. These birds are now pretty hardy. At first I did move that brooding plate into the house and had it run 24 hours. Now we're getting into summertime now, mid-May, and set it on a timer so it just comes on at night. So if they really did want to cozy up, they'd be fine without it at this point, but I give it to them. It's only 25 watts. It's only coming on automatically at light. I'll link one of these outdoor waterproof heaters. Got power run over here, and I've got that inside. Also, little space heater in there with a thermostat control could work for you as well. So again, socializing them is great. Pick up a chicken, hold its wings down over the top like this, wrap around like this so they can't get their wings flapping. We have moved our food and water over here. Same idea, same pyramid. And we've got a ramp. I don't open or close it day or night. They can come whenever they want. Deep litter method, so we are utilizing the cedar wood chips, and it's about time now. It's looking not bright light anymore. So that's telling me that I should probably start to add a few inches of wood chips. I do mix some diatomaceous earth in with the wood chips. I had put a heat lamp in here for a few nights as well, but I'm not actually using that. Now this coop, it actually does have some dividers here in the rear to be able to utilize this as nesting boxes. They say you can have 6 full-size hens in here, which according to commercial practices, I think each bird only needs something like 2 cubic feet of space, which is just kind of disturbing. They have outside space. This is working good for now. But what we did last time, we started with this, then we started leaving the door open, and we built a fence similar to this around it so they had more space. Eventually all that got upgraded, as we'll talk about in a little bit. So yeah, as for now, that's pretty much it. They can come down and get some sunlight as they please, and they are about ready to be introduced to the hens. So what I'm gonna do is actually connect a small passageway through to go into the run of the main chicken coop that's small enough that they can still retreat. They can stay in here, get their own food and water, and they can get away if they're getting bullied by the big hens, and slowly they can just explore and go in there and kind of socialize themselves. But when I first do it, I will need to keep a close eye on them. Few last thoughts. Coops. Having this tall enough to comfortably walk around in here to shovel it out, always a good call. This is not bad for me, a slight duck. It's probably 5.5, I'm almost 6. So there's a little bit of a duck for me to get in here. Being able to open the second door to have easy access to get in here, get a whole wheelbarrow in here to clean it out is wonderful. Your doors, elevating those 8 to 10 inches off of the ground is great, because before you know it, this builds up 6 inches and they pile it up, and now it's getting stuck in here. It's interfering with the door closing. They will have no problems hopping over that 8 inches up. Also, for me, having access to the floor in here and then just being able to rake it out like this is plenty. I know a lot of people like the idea of elevating their coop about this high or so that they can like pull out a tray or get a wheelbarrow underneath it. That's fine. To me, just that small amount that you saw me rake out of there once a week or so is not really a big deal to me. So even just being able, I wouldn't be wanting to scoop it out of there, but even that, to me, opening that is just fine. Other than that, those are my main tricks. A house in a house, got some barn steel, you got some finer mesh, keep the rats out of it. Make watering easy. Looks like I need to tighten that. And yeah, otherwise, it's a little bit of work. I mean, no doubt about it. Once a week, I'm gonna spend a couple hours shoveling out the coop, making sure everything's all fresh, waters are good, mixing foods, all of the odds and ends and chores that go along with it. Every day coming out, collecting eggs, giving them fresh water and ensuring they have food, ensuring there's no predators, upgrading the coops. All in all, it ended up being fairly expensive to do all this, and all the days spent building the coop and such. They are worth it. It is amazing. Not only for your garden to have them around, they are just good pets. Eating the eggs, it's just no contest to a store-bought egg. The nutrition content is just phenomenal. It's rewarding. I would say for us, it's worth it, but there's some downsides, some costs, some time, the noise to the neighbors, flies are for real as well. Anyways, I would say all in all for us, it's worth it, but it's not that easy, all I can say, but let's see. All right, leave comments below if I missed anything. Consider liking and subscribing. You guys are the ones that make this happen, make this content available. So yeah, if you learned anything, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.